welcome to our version 4.5 release webinar. We are very excited about this release. It's a major one. We've introduced a whole array of features across AWS, Azure, Wasabi, and of course, we here at N2W, we pride ourselves on helping customers protect their data no matter where it lives, making it extremely easy to do that. We've said it before, we like to think your grandmother can even use N2W. It's that easy. So let's dive right into it. We're going to do some very quick intros. My name is Jessica. I'm part of the product marketing team here at N2W.
Hi, my name is Katalin Voiku. I'm one of the solutions engineer here at N2W.
Hi, Simon from the product team. Also excited to walk you through the amazing new capabilities here. And as Jessica said, continuing our protection across clouds and also introducing modern workloads like Kubernetes.
Great. Okay. So moving on, the next slide shows that we're really touching on all of these clouds as well as all of the repositories that we support. As you'll see, all of these features are going to hit on security, compliance, cost, even more simplicity, better drills, etc. So let's move on to the first feature, AWS EKS support. So just quick rundown, EKS is, of course, AWS's managed Kubernetes service. This is a feature we are really, really excited to bring you all. This was requested by numerous customers. They needed an efficient way to back up EKS. EKS is constantly changing. EKS orchestrates hundreds, thousands of containers. It's, that single unit that contains everything. It's amazing for DevOps. Makes it super easy for them to transport file systems, scripts. However, that backup and DR piece just isn't that easy. It's a very, very complex operation. Many customers needed those separate dedicated tool for that. They ended up with multiple backup and DR platforms. So they were really in need of a policy-driven cloud-native protection for Kubernetes. And we're very, very happy that we're able to provide that. So Katalin and Simon, I'm going to kind of give it to you guys to go kind of dig into the details of this feature.
Of course. So as Jessica mentioned, a lot of customers are expecting this feature, and we now have it. We are using Velero in the backend, and we can back up namespaces and full clusters, which gives you then the option to recover to the same cluster or to a different cluster. Best of all is you will be able to see everything from the same dashboard that you've come to know and love, the N2W dashboard. One single pane of glass, giving you access to backup and recover all the different workloads. Here, you will be able to create either a new policy or use existing policies that you've already created to back up EKS. How it looks like is you click on create a new policy, name it EKS backup or whatever your naming convention will be. And then in here, in the backup targets, you'll be able to browse through the added functionality of EKS cluster backup and EKS namespaces backup. It looks like any other resource that you would back up with us. So when you click this, it asks you to select the region. I'm going to go with North Virginia, select my cluster. So it will show up in here. And then it shows all the namespaces that are part of this cluster. So I'll be able to just select which ones I want to back up. Then I'll go to lifecycle management, and it will be exactly the same that you already know. You'll be able to select how many generations you want to keep this for. So if this was a daily backup, you can just keep it for 7 days or 14 days and so on. You'll save this policy, you'll run the backup of it, and it will show in the backup monitor with your successful backups. From here, you'll be able, of course, to also recover. So when you select one or the other, right, you'll be able to click the recover button. It's exactly the same as it looks for any other resource. You click what you want to recover from the list here, and it just asks you, what's the target cluster? So you know what you want to recover, the namespace called WordPress RDS. I'm going to recover it to the same cluster, but I need to make sure that I change the name, right? The names are unique for the namespaces, so I cannot recover to the same cluster if that namespace already exists. If it didn't exist, I could recover it with that name. So now I can just call it recovered to, click recover, and it would simply do it.
Kathleen, as you mentioned, what's really great about this is that the user is able to combine those workloads. So you have those Kubernetes workloads, but you have all the resources as well in one single policy and dashboard.
That's the beauty of our tool. It gives you all the functionality in one single place. So you don't have to log in, log out into many different tools. You can do it from one place.
Simon, do you want to add anything?
I just wanted to stress that and add to what you two just said. We really think that the power here that we provide you on top of backing up your EKS cluster, which is obviously important thing to achieve, but we see that customers need that combination. There are sometimes resources outside of the cluster itself, and having that ability in one place is really powerful.
Yeah, and we do want to point out that this is a beta version, so it is accessible to anyone who has the new version 4.5 AI. We're happy to answer any questions about that. Please feel free to contact your customer success manager more about that. So moving on, we have an Azure enhancement, a big cost savings upgrade, and we call it Azure Resource Control. So for those who are customers, you're very much aware of our AWS Resource Control feature. We've had that for some time now. This is what is known as our cutting cloud waste feature. Finance teams love it. They can see that really significant costs can be cut just by identifying and grouping those instances that don't need to be running all the time, can be hibernated, can be automatically stopped and started. So we're really, really happy to bring this feature to Azure users to help them with their cost savings. Katalin, you want to talk about it and show the feature a bit?
Oh, absolutely. Very excited to add this feature to our portfolio because we are saving hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for AWS customers already that are using the resource control to shut down their EC2 instances, their RDS databases on a schedule. So now we have this same power, same capability for Azure to allow our users, our customers to stop and start their VMs on a schedule. After business hours, stop the VM. I'm not using it. If it's development, of course, staging, UAT, and so on, other environments that are not necessarily up and running all the time, and then start them based on that same schedule again the next day when you come back into the office. How it looks like in the UI, you'll go in here into the resource control groups. You have one or many, right? And in each of them, you'll be able to specify what you want to add. So let's call this Azure Resource Control Group 2. It asks you for which subscription you want to do it for. Then go to Operation Targets, select VMs, and then you browse through the VMs that you have. So in Germany, West Central, I have a couple of VMs here, so I can simply add them to the list. This means they will be stopped and started based on the schedule that I will just put in here. And I can say, you know what, do it every single day. Turn off at 6 p.m. So after business hours, turn on the next day, let's say 9 a.m. So in this time when the machine is stopped, you're not paying for the compute cost. That's the magic of this feature, right? So you'll save tremendous amounts of money for resources that you should shut down anyways, right? So if you're not doing it, our tool will give you now the capability to do it. If you're doing some way else with scripting or anything else, we make it easy for you. Get rid of all of that. Come use our feature in version 4.5.
Simon, do you want to add anything?
I think it's pretty straightforward, but powerful and saves money. So once again, for those resources which are not necessarily to keep up all the time, we really recommend to use this.
We have even a specific case study on our site from Get. Just to throw some numbers out there, they had some large Amazon EC2 instances that they turned off at night and on the weekends. They were saving about 50% of those costs because of that, and that translated to about $2,000 per instance. It totaled, I think, over $60,000 annually. So again, like as Katalin said, there's no scripting. You just literally turn off that switch, and it's a huge savings. So let's move on. Support for S3 bucket backup and recovery. Okay, so we do have a feature called Amazon S3 Bucket Sync. So this feature is a great feature. It gives our customers the ability to sync and replicate static data between two Amazon S3 buckets. So This does provide a layer of security in the event of, for example, accidental deletion. So you have the data in that second destination bucket. This is a different feature. It's a new feature, and it's a big step up for protection. So Catalin, let's dig into the improvements on this feature.
Right. So it's a completely separate feature, as Jessica mentioned. You'll see both of them still in the UI. So if you wanted to configure the S3 sync, it will be there, no problem, right? Or if you want to keep using that on top of the new functionality, yes, you can do both. The difference is the S3 bucket sync, the old feature that we had, is simply a copy paste between two locations. Location A, copy all the contents or some of the contents into location B, S3 bucket number 2. With the S3 bucket backup, now we are utilizing AWS backup to be able to back up your bucket into a specific vault that you will have. The requirements for this to work are the following. You need to have your S3 bucket with versioning enabled. If it is not with versioning enabled, you will not be able to utilize this feature. Also, you will need to go into the AWS console, into AWS backup, and you need to opt in for the S3 option here, S3 service. If you don't do that, again, you will see an error message in our tool pointing to that fact. And reminder, you need to do this for every single region. The point here is you need to make sure that S3 service opt-in is enabled for all the regions that you have S3 buckets in where you plan to use the new capability. And how it looks like is you'll be able to add the bucket into a policy like you did with the S3 sync as well. Now, the difference is when you click on configure, it will ask you into which backup vault do you want to store this backup. So you'll have to select from the list here if you want to use the default one or you have specific vaults that you want to use. That's great. And also make sure that the IAM role has the necessary permissions, right? How do you know what permissions are necessary? You will be simply seeing this here with the instructions provided in the AWS website. And it tells you need to have versioning enabled. So that's that. You need to have these two permissions for S3 backup and S3 restore into your role that you're going to use. And that role you will be selecting from the list here. So if you select this role, make sure it has those two permissions as well. Otherwise, the backups will fail, pointing to the permission issue, which again, you will be able to easily fix. Then it will ask you, how do you want to expire these backups? By policy or by time or never, right? So it's very important that you know that whenever you take a backup, it will store it in that vault. But that also means there will be versions of those objects. So if you take daily backups and never delete them, your storage will increase significantly. So this feature, although it's very good and you should use it to back up your S3 buckets, you need to understand that it has cost implications, right? So make sure that you select whichever retention you want here by policies or by days or by weeks or months or years, and then the cleanup will happen automatically. So when we do your backup with N2W, you will also back up the access control list, so the ACLs and the object tags.
With this feature, you have that point-in-time backup of your S3 bucket, which is great.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely, Jessica. That's a good point. So with the other feature, with the S3 sync, you simply had a copy-paste. So you'd have the same objects in both buckets. But with this one, you'll have a point-in-time backup of the bucket itself. So if you take a backup today at 5 a.m., you can always recover from today 5 a.m.
Right, exactly. So a few versions ago, we introduced Azure Backup and Recovery. This was great for both Azure-only customers, but also those that needed AWS and Azure backup and DR under one platform. They can even do cross-cloud protection. So when we introduced this, Azure users had the ability to copy data across Azure regions within a single subscription. So this provided protection to isolate your data in that separate geographical region. Now we've added more DR protection with cross-subscription. So Catalin, do you want to talk about this a bit?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very excited about this feature because, as you mentioned, Jess, we had the other capability on Azure to do in the same subscription backups to a different region, right? But as customers are used to from the AWS part of our tool, we there support cross-account DR. And this now translates into cross-subscription DR in Azure, meaning if you have multiple subscriptions and you want to back up from subscription 1, store the backup in subscription 2, even recover in subscription 2, now you will be able to do it because N2W gives you that capability. You'll simply have your Azure policy, or you can create a new one. And then it will ask you, of course, which targets do you want to back up? So let's say this VM. Then I go to the DR tab here, and I can enable the cross-location backup, so cross-region. I can select one or many, right? Or all of them, actually. And then I have the cross-subscription as well, which allows you to select from a drop-down menu here that shows you all your active subscriptions. My account right now doesn't have more subscriptions, so that's why you don't see any here, but it would be very basic. You select it from the list here, and then it asks you in that subscription, where should the backups go? In the same region, so original location is always the region where the resource was backed up from, so Germany West Central in this case, or I can simply go and say backup to US South Central, right, as well. So it will send the backup there. And now, last but not least, it asks me if I want to keep the original snapshots. The original snapshots are always the ones that are coming from the main account. So this one in Germany West Central. By default, when I initiate a backup with N2W, it will take the backup in the place where the resource is. So in my case, Germany West Central, and then it will copy it to the destinations that I chose. So Spain in the same subscription, and then cross-subscription into Germany West Central and South Central US. So by unchecking this, keep original snapshots, it will not keep the one in the original subscription in Germany West Central.
And of course, this feature is vital for ransomware protection. If one of your accounts or subscriptions gets hacked, you'll be able to spin up your backups from that second subscription. So this is something we really, really highly recommend. Simon, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to say that for Azure customers, we know this is an important part of your strategy of business continuity in general, and how you have a guard in place for disaster recovery, and being able to basically recover across subscriptions is a critical part of that puzzle. So we're happy to introduce it for you guys.
So Azure users, you also have the ability to choose whether your backups will be immutable. So you can put that lock on your data and make it unchangeable for a certain period of time using that highest level of immutability protection. So all of these are just pieces of a larger puzzle to protect your data, in this case, from a malicious attack. The other great thing I wanted to point out is that using cross-subscription, you don't have those egress fees like you do with cross-region. So your data is remaining in that Azure region. You have that additional protection. Many customers utilize this for AWS. It's a great feature. So I think we can move on. This is a feature called One Policy, Multiple Retentions. I really love this feature. On the surface, this is one of those features that may seem small, but it's actually a massive time saver and a massive risk reducer. It gives an enormous amount of simplicity. So this is for customers that have multiple retention periods. It could be, you have so many compliance mandates requiring different retention policies. Could be that you need both daily backups for that operational recovery, while you still need those weekly and monthlies for point-in-time recovery. And now you can do it all under one policy. And Katalin, I would love for you to get a bit deeper into this to really point out what the advantages are of this.
Of course. Thank you, Jessica. So yes, at the surface, it looks like a very small modification, right? A very small feature, as you said, but no, it comes with significant cost savings on top of everything that you mentioned, Jess, because in the past, as you mentioned, when customers had multiple retentions, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, the yearly, like the usual retentions that everybody should have, they would create different policies for that. The implications of having multiple policies is each policy would have a first full backup. So most of the times for Windows machines, it's an AMI. For Linux, it's just a snapshot, sure, but that means you would have 5 AMIs at any given point in your account, which you don't want because you pay 5 times for that amount, right? Now, what we did here is we changed that logic a little bit. You are still able to do the old way if you want to, of course. So we're not forcing anyone into the new way, but this delivers, like I said, significant cost savings by having just one single policy, which I will show you right now in the UI, in which you can set up all these different retentions. You create an AWS policy, let's call it prod. In the past, I would have called it prod daily, right? Or prod weekly or prod monthly. I don't have to do that anymore. I'm going to call it just prod. Then I'm going to select my prod account. I'm going to select a schedule. right? So it has to have a schedule, and usually you go with the daily. So this is my daily prod schedule. I select here some instances that I want to back up. So let's say my Linux from North Virginia, and I go into the Lifecycle Management tab. Here, you have the settings that you're already used to, right? The retentions, the backup to S3, storage repository, and so on, transition to cold storage. But here at the top, we have added this radio button to allow you to enable multiple retentions. When you click it, there's a little bit of text here to explain you what this feature is, but I'm going to tell you very straightforward. You will select a daily backup point that will become your weekly, right? We will add here some additional text to make it easier for you to understand, but will also be available if questions come in to answer anything and to present this feature again to you. So I will say, you know what? I'm taking a daily backup of my policy anyways. So I'm going to say my Sunday will be the weekly backup, right? Great. So now that I have established that the weekly backup will be Sunday, the next point will ask me which backup from Sunday, so which weekly backup will become the monthly backup. So I can say the first week. So if I enable this policy today is the 5th of January, right? I can run this on Sunday. It will become the first weekly backup. So Sunday the 11th. And then it asks me, do you want Sunday the 11th to become also your monthly? And then I can calculate here and I say, I want the 4th week to become the monthly. And then it's the last Sunday of the month, right? And so on and so forth. So I can play around with this, but basically it gives me the power to select which daily backup becomes the weekly backup, which weekly backup becomes the monthly backup. And then I have the retention here. And again, it's pretty straightforward, but at first you'll be overwhelmed. There are so many buttons to click and options to select, but this is to your benefit because it gives you the option to say, the daily backup I want to keep for 7 days. So the first row here is for your daily backups based on your daily schedule. Great. Now, the second one is for the weekly backups, which we have established will be on Sundays. So I want to keep my weekly backups for 1 month. So I will have 4 weekly backups at any given point, and all of them will be taken on a Sunday. Then I want my monthly backups to be kept for, let's say, 1 year, right? And this will be done by choosing the first week, so the first Sunday since I established this policy. So it will be Sunday, the 11th of January. And then it will be the next Sunday from next month, and so on and so on and so on. So this way you can achieve multiple schedules, right? Multiple retentions in one single policy, reducing the number of total AMIs that you keep to 1, because all of these backups will be incremental to the first original full backup that you ever had. That's where the cost savings come from, but also it makes your life easier not to have to manage 5 different policies. You get everything in one single policy.
Yeah, just one point. As mentioned by Jessica and Katalin, this is a powerful functionality with benefits that basically enables you to combine different policies into one. From a management perspective and from a savings perspective, this really provides value. However, if you need some guidance into best practices, into how to set this up and stuff like that, feel free to reach out to us. We will assist with setting this up.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so we can move on to our next feature. Our last release in 4.4, we expanded our multi-cloud capabilities by adding support for Wasabi's S3 compatible storage repositories. So this integration let our customers automate their archiving, essentially moving their EBS snapshots to Wasabi's cost-effective storage. So that gave them isolation of data. It was great for eliminating vendor lock-in. It was great for meeting regulatory requirements that require that offsite storage. But most advantageous, it was really keeping their costs under control because Wasabi has this great low-cost storage option. They don't have API fees, and they provide that rapid recovery. So in this release in 4.5, we're building on this feature. As Simon said, we're kind of building the puzzle pieces for all of our features. I'm going to throw it to Katalin to explain what customers can do now.
Of course. So we have added the compliance locking immutability into Wasabi as well. So we had it in AWS, we had it in Azure. We felt like it's time to have it in Wasabi as well. Why? Because you want to protect your data. So we want to give you all the tools, and it's compliance lock, which means it cannot be removed, right? The other option would be legal hold, which we know also in AWS can be removed by anyone with admin rights. So you don't want that. You want to have real compliance, real air gapping if you want it. It's a buzzword that floats around nowadays, but yeah, this is the way to do it. So basically, we have added the same feature that we had in AWS and in Azure into Wasabi, and it will look like this. You'll go here into storage repositories, right? And you'll create one for AWS, Azure, or Wasabi. To get Wasabi, you'll simply need to go into the settings here, user UI defaults, and enable it. It's not enabled by default, so you'll have to do it. Then once you save it, the option will become available for you to add a Wasabi account. How you do it? Very easy. You'll simply give it a name. So let's call it Wasabi. Then you have to provide your access key and secret access key in here. And then you'll be able to go back to the storage repos, create a storage repo, and you'll see a small checkbox at the bottom that will look very similar to this, where you can enable immutable backups. And there will be no drop-down menu here. This is the AWS one, by the way. There will be no drop-down menu for you to select legal hold or compliance. It's automatically going to be compliance.
And again, stressing that that's that highest level of immutability. For compliance mandates, of course, there are several that require not only isolation of data, but also locked data. There are quite a few, like HIPAA, NIS2 is just to name a few that explicitly mention that requirements. Okay, so I think this is the very last feature. This is a new recovery scenario that we have. So I'm just going to run through in general our recovery scenarios feature. Essentially, when ransomware hits, when a cloud goes dark, what happens is that most of the time, unfortunately, a lot of teams are scrambling. They're stuck trying to figure out which resources you need first. Do they have their network settings? Maybe they're lost somewhere. Maybe they're in an email. They have no idea. So you can have all the backups in the world, but if you don't fully understand how to recover, then there's really no point in having those backups. So that's where recovery scenarios comes in. Our teams love it. Our compliance teams love it. It fully automates recovery procedures. You're taking sort of a sequence of recoveries for several backup targets, and you're running through a scenario. So you're scheduling that scenario. You can prioritize which resources that you want to recover first. You can run it now. You can run it later. You can produce reports that showed you had a successful DR drill. There's tons of stuff. It's essentially building that recovery muscle memory so you're not scrambling when you need your backups the most. So we are constantly building on this feature. This one is a new recovery scenario for Azure policies. So Catalin, can you talk about this one in particular?
Oh, absolutely, Jessica. I have a nice story about this as well. We were recently at an event in Vegas in December, right, called reInvent. And I've got the chance to talk to a lot of people there. And one of my questions was, are you guys doing recoveries, right? Or recovery testing? And most of the answers were yes. But to my surprise, there were answers that were, no, we're not doing that. So this is really weird, because why are you taking backups in the first place if you're not doing your recoveries? You need to know how fast you can recover, where you can recover to, and how easy it is for you to do so, right? Do you have all the pieces after you recover? Does everything work or no? So we had it for a while already for AWS and for Azure, but now we added the capability for you to recover from any repository for the Azure part, for Wasabi, S3, or Azure. How it looks like in the UI, in the recovery scenarios, your list of scenarios. And one of them is my Azure recovery scenario. So automatically it will know from which repository it will have to do the recovery. Why? Because in the policy, you have already specified that, right? So remember, when you go here into your S3 backups, and I can switch to my other console, I think, to show that. So you would have to go to your storage repositories, right? And set these up, enabled to be able to use them in the policies. But then in each of your policies, for example, I don't know, select an Azure test policy. I'll go to lifecycle management, and I want to use the storage repository, so backup to the cheaper storage, it will simply ask me in which storage repository I want to backup to. It can be Wasabi, it can be Azure, it can be even AWS. So I can store everywhere I want, but by selecting one here, right, I will click save, then this policy knows that it will store into this repository. So going back to the recovery scenarios, the recovery scenario automatically knows, right, that it had that storage repo, so it will recover from it. But now what's the beauty of recovery scenarios is, yes, you can run them ad hoc whenever you want. So it will recover all the targets that you have assigned here, right? It can be one, it can be thousands. It's up to you. Or you can do a dry run. And the dry run basically allows you to recover, but not recover at the same time. How does it work? Is it magic? Is it like a smoke? No, it's not. We allow you to test the recovery step by step, but stop at the last step, which is the actual recovery. So we'll check, is the snapshot available? Yeah. Is the region available? Yeah. Is the VNet available? Subnet? Is the resource group? Everything that you need, is that available for the recovery? Okay, then we'll tell you that recovery was successful, right? More so, you can schedule these actions. So I can say here, you know what, monthly, send an email, my email inbox, and I want to do a dry run. So it will perform those steps that I just mentioned. It will not do a recovery, so it will not involve any cost at all, but I'm still getting the result. Yes, your recovery would be successful, or no, your recovery failed because you tried to recover the VM in the same place with the same IP address. This is one of the most common issues when it comes to recovery. So obviously you cannot have the IP address, the same IP address on two VMs at one time, so it will tell you. But this way, you have identified a possible issue for your real case recovery. Whenever it will happen, you know that you need to recover it with a new IP address, or make sure that the other VM doesn't exist anymore, so that IP address is free. And then you can have a quarterly or a yearly or whatever real recovery. This will allow you to recover, let's say, a handful of VMs, right? Log into them after they're recovered, see that everything is working, and then you can decommission them. And then you look at the time and you say, hey, it took me 20 minutes to do that, right? So I'm up and running in 20 minutes, everything does work. So now you're good to go. You know that in a real case event, this is exactly what you need to do, and this is exactly how long it will take you to be up and running.
Going back to your business continuity strategy in general, this functionality is about being proactive, right? Do not wait to the moment where you need to be in some war room and then understand how to do the drills. Get into a cadence. You can decide what it is. Is it quarterly or any other cadence where you test this in advance. And then at the point of time where you need this to work fast, you are already in place and you can do it much more efficiently. So we really recommend this.
Awesome. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Jessica. Bye.